in the sense of, as we get back to finding our individual way of being it and saying it and standing in that, that is going to be what changes the human condition. It's like, find your true identity, be the individual that you are, be that special expression, and as we do that individuality is what is going to really change the world out there. It's like every time you come back to being yourself, what you do becomes more, it has a lot of meaning. It will bring about differences and change in the world, and it's through the individual that we're going to, if there's going to be any bringing in the light or, new day or however we say this, it's going to be through each of us finding out our own unique connection to God. And that's for me, we can't throw the ego out or know what it is exactly. I mean, yes, we understand it's the old conditioning and it's the old belief, and we know all that, but I just don't know if you got to keep dragging it around trying to get rid of it.
A thought comes to mind. If you have the time, could you sort of give us a thumbnail of your story?
Oh, no, probably not. No, I don't think so. Although I just have always had, but I hear this from everybody who searches for the truth. And we're born with it, but I always was one of those who asked, who are we, what are we doing here? But fortunately for me, my dad had been raised by a mother, a beautiful, sweet woman. I mean, a mother and father, but his mother was and we're talking old times here. So his mother was a Christian Science practitioner, and she was one of those when Christian Science was sort of at its blossoming, and talk about new age, new thought. Boy, she was one of those who understood the new thought of what Christian Science was, which was Mary Baker's Eddy, taking those words that I am that we are that Christ light, and that Christ light is within every man, and that God is all, and that God is love. So this was a whole shift in what the religions were believing back then. So she was a Christian Science practitioner. She was a sweet, beautiful woman. She was an artist. She was delicate. She was lovely. And she raised so my dad was, brought up in her Christian Science. His dad was an editor of the Santa Ana Register way back, California, and so he had a lovely upbringing, and his mother instilled in him this Christian Science. So when he married my mother, he brought the spirit of Christian Science was who he was. It was just a part of him. He wasn't a Christian Scientist. He didn't go that route, but he had his own. Since being brought up in it, he had no religion, which was neat. But he had, how would you say it? He had a spiritual outlook. No, you can't say that either. It was just a part of who he was. He just had a trust in life. He just had a joy for life. He was really an interesting guy. I really liked him. Anyway, my influence was from my dad, who would talk to my mother, because my mother was rather neurotic, and he would often say, why don't you try, understanding, because she was raised Greek Orthodox. So she had all the fear stuff of the Greek Orthodox Church. And my dad would talk to her about saying, you're just interpreting God all wrong, and it's like this. And so as he was explaining God, I I would be listening and go, wow, that's really cool. God is love. God is all. And here I was, this little tiny girl going, that's neato, you know. And it made sense to me because I was a kid. And I just thought, that makes perfect sense. So I was a happy little kid, and he would kind of be kind of scooting my mother along in this direction and kind of getting her out of her old rigid Greek Orthodox, the fear. I mean, she told us that she wasn't even allowed to read the Bible back in those days in that Greek church. It was like only the priests in the pubs could touch a Bible. So she began learning metaphysics, and then she got all the stuff of the metaphysics. She got Joel Goldsmith's stuff, and she would go to their meetings, and she read Walter Lanyon, and she read Christian Science, but she veered off from all that and got into the metaphysics, and I found it fascinating, and I would read all of her books. As a kid, it just sort of it was given to me. It was a given. And she even had, by the time I was in, let's say 17, 18, among her books was William Samuel's books. And I don't know if I read his book then. I kind of loved Walter Lanyon when I was about 17 or 18. I thought he was just lovely. And but I would read all that, and it would stay with me. And then several years later, or however many years it was, when I met my husband and we got married, we were in a bookstore, and I saw William Samuel's book on a bookshelf in a bookstore, and I just went, oh, there's that guy my mother used to read. So I pulled it out of the shelf, and it was Guide to Awareness and Tranquility, and I bought it, and I went home with it, and I read it just that day. It was like, I just went, wow. For me, reading that brought all the bits and pieces that I had understood, but, it was like always in my life. It was kind of a background understanding, and somehow reading Bill, I just went, this guy's got it. This is it. This is the way to say it. This puts it all together. This was just, I don't know, there was just such a joy there. I just went, wow, you've got it. So he said, in his books back then you could call him or write to him, and so I did, and I told him what a wonderful book, and we became friends, and we spoke on the phone, and then we went, my husband and I took the kids, and we went to Alabama, and we went to see him, and my relationship with sort of this search was more at the level of, I get it, now I need confirmation. And so when I went to see Bill, it was like, a lot of people would go to him for kind of like teaching, they couldn't really get it. So he was always kind of trying to get people to get it. When I showed up, and he told me this, he said he knew that he was there to confirm what I already knew. And that was like, wow, I didn't have to go that far to get to what I understood. It was only a matter of having somebody say, trust it, do it, live it, be it, you got it. And that's what he kept saying for me is, I have a box of letters, correspondence back and forth, because, of course, there was no email, and box of letters, and in those letters, he's always saying, you have it, trust it, you're doing it, this is it. That was how my relationship with William was more at that level of, he kept telling me I've got it. I guess that's about, he didn't explain, he like when we sat together and talked, it was like he didn't have much to explain to me except for saying, you're getting it, you're doing it, this is it,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's neat. This is a little out of context, but it's something I wanted. Let's see. Is there any more about Bill? I think one of these times we ought to just talk about Bill from your perspective, the interface with the man a little bit. People generally like stories, and that's why I think it's good to sort of tell them. I know why you don't like to tell them. It's sort of the reciprocal. This isn't about Sandy Jones or Rich Hay. It's about the way I like to say it. I'm not who I think I am. I'm who I am in the mind of God, and I'm always already that. I'm just not aware of it. So it's a lot easier trip to stop thinking I'm something other than I am than it is to create a real me out of a false me, if you would. One's of absolute futility, and there's something about being able to just relax and just let it be, and you will see that that's what you are.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And that's why that whole thing about trying to figure out who you're not or who you... It's like, I can't... I mean, if somebody wants to instruct that kind of thing, and somebody needs that's what they need. But that isn't... I can't do that. I'm not an instructor in that sense of what is the ego, what is the... I can't... It just doesn't suit my taste. I can't go there. But I don't know, whatever it is that I'm going to give or have to give or will give, it's something more direct than that. But going back to Bill, I was going to say, yes, out of his... listen to this one. Here, I took, some of the little, some of the things that he wrote to me. Once I made a little booklet of all the little, of course there was more than this, but I've got, pages of his little words that he would say. But he says, this was personal from a letter to me. He says, remember this, the travel on the river of life isn't easy, but you will make it. More, you will chart your course and mark it on your own charts so that others can make the twists and turns beyond the shallows and sandbars and old shoals where the rocks are. He says, what comes via God's grace is not what one anticipates, as you well know, Sandy. I can warn you that this work is not easy. There is heat and light where the fire is struck, but the fuel of that fire is old, cherished opinions, institutional foundations, monetary systems, and all that the world holds dear. The words that I don't find, perhaps you will. The idea I can't illustrate and make clear, you can. So set your cap to write it on the tablets so that those who read it may run. I mean, I have just, tons of these sort of, as I say, confirmations to live it, to be it, to do it, to share it, and to share Bill's work along with it, because his message is the message that sent me sky high, sent me living it. So I want to share his work so that we can have unbound freedom and joy for everybody. And mine is just a passion and a love for the child, for the truth, for the light, for the freedom, for the liberty, for the spirit, for the living it. And that if I could, if I could show, it's like you just have to live it. You just have to be it. I don't know how to explain it. I can only share my joy. I guess that's all there is,
That's more than enough. This gives me an idea. Those letters are so touching and so poignant, and